Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's another edition of eMigr8 Open Day. It promises to be informative. We'll be focused on landing a role in the UK tech ecosystem, landing a role that comes with a visa. We'll be looking at some of the UK skilled worker routes in terms of visas in the UK. We'll be focused on two specific visas today in terms of the visa types we'll talk about. The skilled worker visa, which requires a certificate of sponsorship. We'll also speak about the UK scale-up visa. Those will be two of the visa types we'll be speaking about today. But our focus in this session is just us sharing tips and some things that you may want to know around being able to land a job in the UK tech ecosystem, because the visa types we'll be speaking about today requires you to already have a job for you to be able to get the visa. And so that's the reason why we've got two related themes, but also saying the same thing. It's going to be about an hour, 30 minutes of packed information. If you wait till the end, we'll be sharing some additional bonuses for people that wait till the end of this session. We are hoping you would have a lot of different questions. We are here to answer those questions as much as we can. We would always say that this is not immigration advice. This is not legal advice either. What we are doing is that we are sharing from the wealth of our experience to be able to help people. Also, if you are, the pathways we'll be talking about today may not be beginner friendly because we are focused really on skilled people, experts, highly experienced people. Those are the people that we're focused on in today's edition. However, it is beginner friendly in the sense that you as a beginner, if you are a beginner in the room, you will be able to plan, you'll be able to plan your journey in terms of what it is that you can do today, and you would be able to hear a lot of tips that you can also start putting into action and be thinking about building your profile along that line. We'll also talk to you about eMigr8. We'll talk to you about some of the things that we do and how we can help at eMigr8. But yes, the objective of this session is for us to be able to share as much information as possible and also answer as many questions as possible within the time that we've got for this session today. And so, as I said, the theme for today is landing a job in the UK tech ecosystem that comes with a visa. Just to confirm that you can hear me, could you type in the chat if you can hear me and if you can see my screen? Please type in the chat if you can hear me. Oops. And yes, you cannot yet see my screen actually. Yeah, you should be able to hear me and see my screen. Can you see my screen as well? Thank you. Fantastic. So our focus today is landing a job in the UK tech ecosystem, a job that comes with a visa. Who are we though? We are eMigr8. eMigr8 focuses on tech-enabled visa pathways to relocation and settlement. eMigr8 focuses on those pathways. Today, just as a recap, we will start by just sharing a bit around who eMigr8 is and what eMigr8 is not. We are not sharing visas here, just to mention. We will focus on the UK skilled worker visa routes for tech professionals, talk about some of the requirements, talk about some things that you may not already know, and then we will focus on landing a role and some of the things that you should know or we think that people should know in terms of helping them land their next role in the UK tech ecosystem, if that's where you would like to play your game. We would have time for a lot of different questions and answers. We may not be able to bring you up stage for you to ask your question, but you can literally ask your question in the chat and we'll be able to attend to them as much as possible. Also, as I said, if you wait till the end, we have a bunch of bonuses that we'll be sharing at the end of today's session. And so we advise that you do so and listen real good. I will also just mention that eMigr8 Open Day, it happens once or twice a month at this point, and we've had a number of sessions of eMigr8 Open Day. We have a lot of the replay videos available on YouTube. We've had open days focused on the UK Tech Nation visa. We've had open days focused on the Australia Global Talent visa. We've had open days focused on the different US visa routes, including the graduate assistant route. We've spoken about the Canada startup visa and several other visa pathway, Germany, and so on. A number of these replay videos are available and for you to take a look at if you are interested in that pathway. We've had coaches come on to share from their wealth of experience to help people to be able to point you in the right direction and also to answer questions that you may have. The different open days have been really informative, and today's session will also be highly informative. But just to whet your appetite, we've got a bunch of other open days coming up within the next couple of weeks. We've got an open day focused on the UK Startup and Innovator visa coming up. We've got sessions focused on the UK Tech Nation visa, the Global Talent visa coming up. We've got sessions focused on the US Global Talent visa route, specifically the O1 visa, O1 EB1 visa coming up, the Canada Startup visa, and also French Tech visa. Those are some of the different open days that you should be looking out for, particularly if you're part of the eMigr8 community. eMigr8 focuses on tech-enabled visa pathway to relocation and settlement. What we say about eMigr8 is that we help you become globally attractive. Our focus at eMigr8 is to help you become globally attractive. Yes, some of us probably came into the room because we are focused on one visa type or the other. We are interested in one visa type or the other. But we believe that if you are globally attractive, having the visas is literally a side effect. The reason is because if you are globally attractive, you will have options. If one door closes, recently there was a lot of talk around a couple of doors that are closing. If you are following the news, if you are part of eMigr8 community, you are probably aware that the UK student visa route plus the dependent visa are being reviewed by the UK Home Office, for example. But the point is that if you are globally attractive, you will have options of several different countries, apart from your own country, where you may even decide to say, oh, I want to build or stay within my own country. For us, globally attractive is in two ways, either a globally attractive tech profile, which is what we'll be focusing on the most during today's session, or a globally attractive tech-enabled business, typically a startup. For some people, your startup can literally be your visa. We're not focusing on that today. Today, we are focusing on how you can use your tech profile, particularly if it is globally attractive, to be able to land visa options and also be able to further your career. What can eMigr8 and how can eMigr8 help? We help with things like information sessions, general inquiry. We help with coaching and handholding to say, oh, I need help in this way or this other way. We help with preliminary assessment of your qualification status. We help with building a roadmap, either for your application if you're already on the process of applying, or we also help with a roadmap to say over the next 1 year, these are the things that you need to do for your profile to look like those that can be endorsed, for your profile to look like those that can be awarded the type of visas that we are talking about today. We also talk about different roadmaps to having a globally attractive tech profile. Also, for example, with the UK Global Talent Visa, we can help with things like your endorsement review process. Should you not have been given an endorsement, we can help with that process. But before you get to that stage of not being given the endorsement review, we can help with also packaging and helping and hold in terms of what you need for that specific visa type. And so those are things that you can do. And we do a lot of things for free at eMigr8. We run a freemium service, meaning that we do some things free, and then we do some things at a premium as well. But we do a lot of things for free. And what we encourage people to do is start with the things that are available to you for free. We start with things like information and inspiration. We discovered that a lot of people do not realize that they could qualify for some of these visa types that we're talking about, particularly the ones we're talking about today, but also several of them that are available from all over the world. So we start with information and inspiration, just to inform people to say, these are things that are available. These are things that you can plan for. These are things that you already qualify for. We also run the eMigr8 community on multiple social media platforms where we share information, we share tips, we help encourage each other, and so on. We run the monthly open days, which happens once or twice a month at this point. It's free to members of the eMigr8 community. And so within the monthly open days, we bring coaches, facilitators, guests who have walked the walk, and they are able to share information, they are able to share tips, they are able to share information from their own unique perspective. And you would understand that no two perspectives are the same because there are different backgrounds and so on. But then if you're able to add that, you can use that to map on your own profile to see what's going on. We run open consultation sessions like the one we would have during this session today. We have visa-specific office hours as well. The visa-specific office hours help with specific visa types. So like the technician visa, that's the UK Global Talent visa, and so on. We have those office hours where you can come in, you can ask questions and so on around that specific visa type. Usually it's not a recorded session. We also have short inquiries on the free side of the equation. For now, we are limited to just one short inquiry session per person. The reason is because we are not, at the end of the day, it's time. And what we encourage people to do is before you book the short inquiry session, do your own research. Don't go into a short inquiry session with a coach and ask questions that you can easily Google. That is not what this session is designed for. This session is designed for once you've done your own research, you've done your own plan, you've done everything, you've consume as much information that is available to you as possible. And then maybe you get stuck. Maybe you don't understand something. Maybe there's something in your own unique profile or in your own unique circumstance. Then you can book the short inquiry session because then the coach will be able to answer specifically to you. But please bear in mind that we are only able to accommodate one short inquiry session on the free side of the equation. In addition to that, eMigr8 has got premium offerings as well. So on the premium side of eMigr8, we've got the eMigr8 Circle, which is a premium community. They get access to a few more of these short inquiry sessions, aside from many other benefits. Premium videos and so on are available to the eMigr8 community. We've got the personalized coaching sessions. We've got different eMigr8 premium services, and we've got customized services as well, based on whatever is required by any one of the people on the eMigr8 platform that need help from eMigr8. So as I mentioned, we've got the freemium model. So we've got things that are available for free, but we do have things that are available at a premium as well. eMigr8 also has packages that is geared towards specific visa types to help people that are already ready to apply or already at the stage of applying. So we've got the move to the UK as a global talent, focused on the UK global talent, which is also called the technician visa. We've got moved to the UK in 3 to 6 months and several other options as well, as you can see on the screen. The one we'll be talking about today is the UK tech-enabled visa pathways for skilled workers, and that would be our focus during today's session. eMigr8 community is available for you. A number of our coaches are in the different eMigr8 communities, and they are happy to help. Many of our coaches come from a background of give first. So it's not really about, oh, you need to pay for consultation or any of those kind of things or for coaching sessions. Instead, the coaches are available to be able to answer as many questions as possible. Obviously, time is a limiting factor at any point in time for some of these as well. The links to the eMigr8 communities are on your screen. You can join any one of those communities. We encourage you to engage. We encourage you to share. You can also share information in those communities as long as it is focused on tech-enabled visa pathways, which is what we focus on in eMigr8. eMigr8 is a service of Bincom Dev Center. It's a product of Bincom Dev Center, and Bincom Dev Center has got a bunch of other services and products that may be of interest to people on the call. And so I will just share a few of those services, and we would use that to then segue into the next section of today's session. Bincom Dev Center has got the Bincom Global Tech Program, and the Bincom Global Tech Program focuses on three key pillars that are required for people that are trying to become globally attractive, particularly in the field of technology. Learn skills, gain experience, and gain exposure in the field of technology. If you're a total beginner in the field of tech, this program is highly recommended for you. Also, if you're at the intermediate level in the field of tech and you understand that you need the right combination of experience and exposure for you to get to the next level, this program is also highly recommended for you. You can find the link on the screen and you can go there to get more information. We've also got the Bincom mentoring platform. One of the ways for experts in the room to show they are globally attractive is for them to mentor. However, for visas like the UK Technician visa, it is required that you mentor on a structured platform. And the Bincom mentoring platform is one of such. We are actively looking for mentors because we've got a bunch of mentees across different programs that are looking for your help. And so if you're interested in mentoring because you already have a number of years of experience in the field, we highly recommend this platform for you to mentor others, to give back, and so on. It's the Bincom mentoring platform. We've also got Labs by Bincom. I'm just talking about some of the other programs of Bincom Dev Center, in addition to eMigr8, which is the service that has brought us to the room today. Labs by Bincom focuses on you building a product-led digital technology, basically a startup with a team of people. Labs by Bincom is a 3 to 6 months program where you and a team of 3 to 10 people can create a startup from scratch. It serves as practical learning experience and opportunity. It helps you to build your profile as a startup founder or as being part of a startup. It helps you to be able to improve your career and also build your portfolio as a techie. If you're interested in such a program, bincom.net/labs is the link that you probably want to go to. We've also got our tech career coaching service, or called the Headhunter service, and it's focusing on tech employment and recruiting service. We'll talk a bit more about this service because some of the things that we'll be sharing in terms of tips and so on, this service may be able to help, but we are sharing the tips ahead. And then if you need handholding, if you need a coach around your tech career to land your next role faster, to land a certificate of sponsorship faster, to build relevant experience in your target country, to connect with technical recruiters, this service may be of interest to you. You can go to bincom.net/tech career coaching, or you can send an email to Bincom and they will be able to help. These are some of the tech-enabled visa routes that are available as of today across different countries. And so because you are in tech, because you're a tech person, these are some of the routes that are available. I would say you can take a screenshot of these, you can Google them, put them on Google, and you will find a lot of information about these different visa routes. Please understand that this is not an exhaustive list of visas. As I mentioned, eMigr8 as a platform at this point in time focuses on only tech-enabled routes. So there are many other routes that may be available, and so this is not an exhaustive list. Second thing is that this is also not an exhaustive list of tech-enabled visas. These are just examples for you to understand a particular concept, and I will share that concept again right now. Every country in the world that is forward-thinking realizes that there's a war for talent, particularly tech talent. And so the forward-thinking countries of the world are always making different visa pathways available for you as a globally attractive person to be able to move to their jurisdiction, because they realize that you will move your innovation to their jurisdiction, because they realize that you will move your family, your innovation, your work, you create employment and several other things in their jurisdiction. Everybody is fighting for that new oil. And so because of that, they have no choice but to attract the best of the best in the world. And that's what we're saying, that you have options because you're globally attractive. These are some of those options. Almost every European country at today has one version of startup visa or the other. The French have the French tech visa, Canada has the startup visa, UK has UK has the startup visa, the global talent visa, and several others. There's a lowest common denominator across all these visa types that I've mentioned. It is that you should become globally attractive. If you're highly skilled, highly experienced, highly exposed, if you are globally attractive, then they are looking for you because you have the right combination of the things that you need. eMigr8's current focus, however, is visas that has an active pathway to settlement, either directly or indirectly, visas where you can move your family. As I mentioned earlier, visas where tech-enabled opportunities are what we focus on. And then we discuss in depth around some of these different visa types in our different eMigr8 open days, and beginners can plan. And so if you say, oh, yes, I don't yet qualify for this visa that you have talked about or this opportunity that you are talking about today, what we think you should be doing is that you should be planning. You should be actively working towards the goal. You should understand that, oh, this is what my profile should look like. And then I'm definitely working towards that profile to ensure that, oh, I will qualify in the near future. It may be in 6 months, it may be in 1 year, it may be in 2 years, right? That's the maximum we think it should be, really, right? It may be at that long, but the point is that you are gradually moving towards your goal. Now, of course, if you're already in the room and you are highly qualified, you are highly skilled, which is the focus of today's session, then what you probably need is some of the tips that we'll be sharing today. You may need coaching, you may need any of those as well to help you get towards the opportunities that are available to you today. And so that brings me to landing a job in the UK tech ecosystem that comes with a visa. I'll just say before I jump into the next session, is to say that we've got the move to the UK in 3 to 6 months. If you're interested in that campaign, you can send a message to any one of the WhatsApp numbers on the screen, and you'll be able to understand more about that particular campaign. This is not the global talent visa. This is not the skilled worker visa that we are speaking about today. This is not even the student visa route. This is a different route that you may be interested in, and you can send a message to that number to get more information around that. Yeah, so we've got a couple of polls, and one of them is I would like to just get a quick glance into the audience in the room. And I've asked that you put a number on the chat, either 1, 2, or 3. So category 1 would be you're in the UK on a visa with a pathway to settlement. So your focus today is really just the tips around you just need a job. So you want to get some of those tips around landing a job in the UK tech ecosystem. Category 2 is you're in the UK as well, but you don't have a pathway to settlement. And so maybe the student visa route, the startup visa route, and a few other routes that do not have a pathway to settlement, but they are good stepping stones towards your final objective. And then category 3 is that you are outside the UK. I will ask that you just type in the chat now what category that you are in. The different categories are on the screen, and we're just asking that you type what category that you are in. Thank you. I see a lot of 3s in the room. I see a 2. Thank you. Please keep letting us know what category that you are in, and then it will help us, and it will also help me in terms of where I should focus on in this presentation at this point. All right. In addition to that, I believe that we've got another poll. I'm not sure if that poll has been put up already. If it hasn't, it can go up now. If it has already been put up, please, you can also vote on the Zoom poll. We are trying to just get a couple of information from you. So if you can, we want you to just fill that so that we will be able to get some of those information that we are trying to get from you. And this brings me to the next section of today's Open Day, which is us talking about some UK skilled worker visa routes that are available to tech professionals. There are two key routes that we would talk about. But before then, I would just say again that eMigr8 does not offer immigration advice. eMigr8 does not offer legal advice. We don't even offer visa advice. What we do is that we share information available to us. We're able to coach, we're able to handhold based on our experience. And so I would just say that again as a disclaimer. So we'll focus on two visas that we'll talk about briefly, but we'll segue that into the landing tech job section of today's session. We'll be talking about the UK skilled worker visa route, and then we'll be talking about the UK scale-up visa, which is a recent addition to the list of UK visa types that are available as at today. And for this section, what I would do is I will just be sharing my browser because there's a lot of information available in the public domain. And those information is what we think that you should start with in terms of you doing your own research. But then we will drill down into some tips that we've got around you being able to land the right role that you're looking for, particularly in the UK tech ecosystem. All right. At this point, I would also ask that if you can tweet at I'm so sorry, they told me what they want us to tweet. So I'm looking for it in the chat. There's an hashtag you can tweet to invite other people into the room. They said I should say that. So I'm saying it that they told me to say it, right? But yeah, really, at this point, you can tweet around what you're hearing today. You can share it with friends. You can share it with colleagues. You can share it with people who also need the same level of information. And so I'm going to be sharing my screen and we'll be looking at some information around the UK, the two visa types I've spoken about. You can find some of that information online, and then we'll now drill down back into our slides around landing a job in the UK tech ecosystem focus that can give you a certificate of sponsorship across those two different visa types. So I'm sharing my screen again. All right. Please just type in the chat just to confirm that you can see my screen. So I'll start with the UK skilled worker visa, right? Now, first thing you need to understand is that the skilled worker visa is not only focused on tech skills. In fact, it's focused on several different industries. And because it's focused on several different industries, it's not shortlisted to say, oh, okay, it's only tech people, it's only tech companies that can use this particular visa route. However, as I've always mentioned, and I've mentioned quite a number of times in this session today, eMigr8 focuses on only tech-enabled visa routes. Now, the skilled worker visa, what is it asking for? It's a tier 2 visa, meaning that it's tied to your workplace. That's what it means. It's a tier 2 visa, and it enables you to be able to work for a UK employer that has been approved by the UK Home Office. And so how this starts is that the employer will need to have been approved by the UK Home Office. Now, there's a list of the employers online. You can simply search for that list. There's a site. It should have been on my browser, but we can drop it in the chat as well. There's a site where you can see a list of the employers, or you can also just search for it on Google. The Home Office always makes that list public at every point in time, but there are people that have already tried to make that list better in terms of being better to search for it, and so you can use that to look at the list. You need a certificate of sponsorship from the employer, and that certificate of sponsorship can be defined or undefined. We'll come to what that means for those that may not know. And you are able to do a specific job for the employer that is an eligible occupation. you need to be paid a minimum salary, and the minimum salary threshold is generally put in place. But if you're in tech, I mean, the minimum salary is less than, I think, 35,000 pounds or thereabouts. You can check it online as well. But the point is that if you're in tech, you are probably looking at starting salary in some cases along that line if you are highly skilled. And as I've mentioned, our focus today are for people who are highly skilled, who are already globally attractive, who already have the right combination of skill, experience, and exposure in the field of technology. There are a bunch of other things that you need to do. You need to have a knowledge of English, and there are different ways in which you can prove your knowledge of English. You can stay up to 5 years, but before you need to extend. But what happens is that within that 5 years, you would be able to qualify, most likely if you stay in the UK long enough and all the other requirements, for ILR. The scale of visa is also similar. The only difference is that they automatically, let me put it that way, they automatically put a list of companies who are the scale-up companies on a list to say that if you are a part of a scale-up company, you can literally skip a couple of steps, and then you can also sponsor people for these visa types across the different occupations. I'm looking at time because we want to leave time for question and answer. And so I'm going to leave it at that. And I will just say, this is available on Google. You can do a search for those two visa types. I'll just talk about the point system briefly, and then I'll go back to my slide. What they use for the skilled worker visa is actually a point-based system to calculate, to say, based on a specific job opportunity, how many points have you earned for you to be able to get the visa. There's a minimum point that you need to get. In terms of the point base, I think it's 70 is the minimum point that you need to get. And then they are looking at a bunch of things to see if you are meeting that minimum points. Something I failed to talk about is the shortage occupation list. The shortage occupation list is a list of jobs in the UK that they realize that we have a shortage of these people in the UK. For tech, several tech careers are on the list of shortage occupation list. I'll leave you to go and search for that list. If you just put what I've just said on Google, you'll find the list there, and I'll leave you to search for that list. And on that list, you will be able to find different roles in the field of technology that the UK government has recognized as these jobs, these occupations. We have a shortage of professionals, skilled people in these roles. And so if a company finds a skilled person in this role, wherever in the world that person is, they can bring them into the UK. The UK government will give them work visa so that the person can work in the UK on that list. In terms of the points, you are on an appropriate skill level. You have a licensed sponsor, meaning that a company is sponsoring you. The salary they are going to pay you is more than the minimum threshold, right? There are some occupations that has a 20% discount on that threshold, but we're not talking about that today. And then if the job is in the shortage occupation list, then you get an automatic 20 points as well. Now, those are some of the key points in terms of the point-based system, and you can read much more about this as well online. Now I would go straight back into my slide in terms of some of the things we wanted to point out that may be useful for many people in the eMigr8 community. Many of the things I've said, I didn't have enough time to drill down as much as I would like to, because we really would need to have time for question and answer in this session, and we may have to do a part 2 of this session as well. A couple of things that we want to just talk about is this, and I will start from the employer's perspective. The employer is not doing you a favor by making this certificate of sponsorship available to you. The employer needs skilled workers. The reason why they applied in the first place for many of the employers and is because they need skilled workers. Many of these employers, particularly the large ones, have many on-field roles. Developers, project managers, business analysts at a highly skilled level. Entry level is very saturated, but the problem is that somewhere in the middle and somewhere at the top, a lot of those skills are scarce. They are scarce. And that's the reason why many of these visa opportunities exist. If they could fill the role without the sponsorship layer, they would. And so the reason why they make the sponsorship available, the reason why even the UK government has made it available is because of the fact that they understand that there's a scarcity. And because there's a scarcity of tech talent, then let's make this sponsorship available. Let's attract the right talent from anywhere they are in the world. And so from the employer's perspective, they are not doing you a favor by making the visa pathway available. The second thing is that the Home Office also defines two types of certificate of sponsorship, which is the undefined certificate of sponsorship and the defined certificate of sponsorship. Undefined is for people applying within the UK. And that's the reason why we say in some cases that it is easier to land a role that will give you a certificate of sponsorship in the UK than if you are coming from outside of the UK. And that's why eMigr8 supports some intermediate types of visa, which is not the end in itself because there's no pathway to settlement, but it is a pathway, it is a means to an end. Is it easier to land a COS if you are in the undefined category? Because you can start, for the employer's perspective, you can start working immediately because you have a right to work in the UK under a different visa type that doesn't have a pathway to settlement. Don't forget also that the employers already get allocation for undefined certificate of sponsorship. Now, for defined certificate of sponsorship, undefined means you are already in the UK, right? And to a large extent, you have a right to work in the UK already, just not a pathway to settlement. Defined means that you are not yet in the UK, generally speaking. It is not impossible for you to land the right visa that you're looking for, even if you are still in your own country. We know of many people who have gotten it, and it is not impossible because every day, particularly people from India, get the certificate of sponsorship because a lot of times people in India have the right level of skill, experience, and exposure for what the employer is looking for per time. The reason is that there's a level of scarcity, which is something I've mentioned over and over again. The only thing you need to understand, however, is that for the defined category, the employer has to submit a request to the Home Office on a case-by-case basis. So with the undefined ones, what happens is that the employer already has an allocation for the year, which they can give to anybody who is already in the UK. For the defined ones, they need to be able to put your information, your role, your job title, your name, and several other information. They need to be able to put that in the sponsorship management system. Also bear in mind, and I'm saying this also from the employer's perspective, that the employer is actually going to be paying a fee, right? It could range from less than £1,000 to up to £7,000, £8,000, depending on many different circumstances, if you're working with a lawyer and all of those kind of things, right? And so the employer is actually going to also be paying a fee because they want to attract your level of talent. Now, if you know those things, then a few things should automatically start occurring to us. One of them is the fact that if I'm definitely this talent that they are looking for, and I'm able to fit into the role that they are looking for, then there's a place for me across the different visa types that we're talking about today. And that brings us to, I'll just pause here for a moment for me to catch my breath. And I'll ask again to say that please tweet at, is it in the chat? It's still not in the chat. Okay, they say you should click a link. Please click the link and then help us retweet and tweet and tell people about this session that is going on. We'll then be going into a second part of this before we then take question and answers. I would also ask that if you have questions, please drop them in the chat. Drop your questions in the chat. We will take the questions in the chat first, and the questions from the different eMigr8 community. We will take those questions first. So please drop those questions in the chat as much as possible. Note them down, ask as many questions as possible. We would allow some time for this question and answer. But yeah, we'll pause for just a moment at this point, where we will then talk about landing a job in the UK that comes with a visa. We'll be right back. As we mentioned, please tweet at Bincom Dev Center, tweet at eMigr8, use the hashtag eMigr8. Talk about things that may have occurred to you or you may have learned so far during this session. All right, so let's continue. Welcome back for those of us that, as I was saying, and I'll just recap for those of us that are probably just coming into the room, we spoke about what eMigr8 does, which is around tech-enabled visa pathways. We spoke around some of the services available, including our tech career coaching service. We then spoke around some of the visa pathways available for skilled workers, specifically the skilled worker route and also the UK scale-up visa route. We spoke about the fact that you can find a lot of information on these visa types online. You can find a list of the employers online that already have a certificate of sponsorship. You can find a list of the scale-up companies online. You can find a lot of information around these different visa types available online. We said that from the employer's perspective, they are not doing you a favor. They need those skills. They need the skill that you have. That's the reason why they are making these available. From the UK government perspective as well, they are not doing you a favor. They realize that if they want to build the fintech capital of the world, or maybe the tech capital of the world, as they say, they need the tech talents to come to their jurisdiction. That's the reason why these things are available. And so the question then is that what are some of the things that you can be doing, whether you are in category 1, category 2, or category 3. As I mentioned, category 1 that we'll speak with, because for all the categories, yes, there are nuances to some of the things that you should be doing, but it is still the same overall principle. Category 1 would be people in the UK. You already have a pathway to settlement, and so you are just looking at landing the right role in the UK tech ecosystem. Maybe your next role, maybe the next level, maybe a higher salary, and so on. Category 2, you're already in the UK, but you do not have a pathway to settlement. And so you are looking out for a role that will be able to give you a certificate of sponsorship. And then category 3, you are not yet in the UK, but you're looking for a way to be able to relocate yourself and maybe your family to the UK, maybe using one of these visa routes that we've spoken about. We're speaking about today. For all 3 categories, the information we'll share here is probably going to be useful for you around landing a job in the UK tech ecosystem that comes with a visa. Our assumption at this section is that you are highly skilled. If you are not highly skilled, what you should be doing is that you should be building the skill quickly. You should be building the experience quickly. You should be building the exposure quickly. And so we are speaking with people who are already highly skilled, highly experienced, and highly exposed in the field of technology. You need to have the right experience, because for many of the visa types that are available, they are looking for people, the round peg in the round hole, the square peg in the square hole. They are looking for people that will fit into a particular role. And so if you are not highly skilled, then the first thing you should do is that ensure that you build the skill. If you are not experienced in the things that they are looking for, then what you should be doing is building that experience and also maybe exposure. The exposure bit is part of why you are in this session today. I'll talk about a couple of actors that we will speak about, and you hear me speaking about some of these actors that are in the scene. And so I'll just talk about high level for all of them. You want the job, right? Which has sponsorship, or you want the job, right? A technical recruiter is somewhere in the middle of this equation. And for many technical recruiters, they only get paid when they feel they fit you into a job. The hiring manager, so the technical recruiter typically may not work with the company. They have their own agency. It could be an individual running his own freelancing gig, or it could be a technical recruiter working for a recruitment company. The hiring manager works within the organization that has the certificate of sponsorship, that has the job, and the hiring manager wants to fill the roles that they have gaps in. If you check online, you'll find that there are almost 1 million roles today that the UK recognizes that are empty. They are looking for people to fill it. And they understand that there are not enough people in the UK that will fill it, which is the reason why they are looking for people either that moved in and they want them to stay, or there are people that are not yet in the UK and they want them to move to the UK. There's also your prospective manager, the person that is trying to fill a role in his department. And what he's looking for is a skilled person to deliver his KPI, to deliver his business objective. Typically, there's a decision maker. For a larger organization, there may be multiple layers of decision makers, but the manager may not be the hiring decision, may not be able to make the hiring decision, but they can recommend to say, we've interviewed 5 people and this person stood out of these people that we have interviewed so far. Most interviews are remote. You don't have to physically show up. Most, I said, because I mean, as things are opening up post-COVID, some interviews are now happening physically as well. For larger organizations, they then also have a team that manages their visa sponsorship. Remember, I mentioned allocation for undefined, and then they have to also, for defined sponsorship, they would have to put in your details and all of those things and make sure they do a lot of due diligence, because the Home Office does not want anyone to game the system. I would warn a few people, because we understand that, I mean, the ecosystem, there are people trying to game the system by getting sponsorship from companies that they are not actually working in, not realizing that the Home Office does routine inspection and they can take away the sponsorship from the organization, right? By working with dodgy organizations and several other things that people do. I'll just want to say that don't forget that if you end up being caught, the cost is too high. If you end up being caught being dodgy, whether the company or not, you can actually be, your sponsorship and your visa can be removed immediately. That's part of the Home Office policy. So just to mention that. But these are some of the actors in the ecosystem that you should be aware of. Also, because the UK is an organized system, nobody wants to be accused of discrimination of any sort. And so what happens is that the job description that is published is actually the job that you will be doing in many cases. They need to be able to have a level playing field for the people that they are bringing in, to say, oh, we considered all the people. We consider everyone that applied. We considered everyone that came into our view, and that this is the best person to fill the role. And so the first thing that happens before that job is even published at all is that they actually work on the right job description. So yes, we know in some countries they just copy and paste, and they just copy and paste and all of that. The job description would describe exactly what it is that they are looking for the person to do. And so one of the tips that you can probably take away is that the job description that you are seeing for some of the roles that you are targeting, notice that I didn't mention any specific role so far, because you can be on the technical side of tech or you can be on the business side of tech. Whatever it is, the job description, does your profile, be honest with yourself, does your profile actually match that job description? Remember when I said our assumption is you're highly skilled, you're highly experienced, and you're highly exposed. you need to ensure that you already meet that, because you'll find it very difficult going through these different recruitment stages if you don't already meet that. And so one of the stages would be open to new opportunities. Then you are actively applying for roles. Then there's the profile and CV assessment. There's something called an applicant tracking system. And the applicant tracking system literally scans your CV to check if your CV matches what they are looking for. There's also a technical recruiter call. Typically, it's a short 10-minute call where they are just having a checklist. They are discussing with you, so there's not like question. It's not like you're filling a form. They are discussing with you, but what they are really trying to figure out is that do you meet all the criteria that the recruiting manager has already set. The recruiting manager will shortlist. The different technical recruiters will present multiple CVs. The recruiting manager would take a look and say, oh, fine, these are the 3 or 4 or 5 people I want to speak with. They don't have all the time in the world to speak with every single person. Then there are different interview stages, one focused on technical, because they want to know if you can actually do that job, one focused on the culture fit, and then there's the hiring decision. The hiring decision, most times, if you get to that stage, it's likely you already have the job, with the exception of if maybe 2 people move to the stage and then they will pick just one person. First thing we think that you should do is that you need to optimize your profile. Notice that I didn't just say your CV. You need to optimize your profile. You need to be a specialist. Many countries of the world, they don't mind generalists. They don't mind you to be UI, UX designer. They don't mind you to be a project manager and a product manager and a scrum master and everything together. In the UK, it's different, and in many developed economies as well. UK is just what we are focused on today. It's different. They are looking for a specialist. So if they say that they are looking for a project manager, don't go to the interview and talk about how you've done Scrum Master and a few other things. Yeah, in other stages, yes, that may be useful, but at a certain stage, that is not useful. If they say they are looking for a developer that has experience in Python and that has this and this and this in the profile, don't go to the interview and say that, oh, yes, I'm also project manager and so on. Yes, in many countries of the world, those things are normal, right? But in the UK, they are looking for specialists, particularly at that level. And so the first thing you want to do is that be able to show yourself as a specialist. Be able to show yourself as that specialist that they are looking for. You may want to buy LinkedIn Premium. We highly recommend it because LinkedIn, as at this moment we're having this presentation, LinkedIn is like a de facto social media where everybody that is sort of looking for a job and everybody looking for people to fill a job are in. And so you may want to do that. Get someone to review your CV from an independent perspective. Because sometimes you may think that you are projecting something, but the truth is that you are projecting something else. Also, pass your CV through an applicant tracking system. There are many of them online. If you want, we can make recommendations on the community. If you are part of our eMigr8 community, we can make a couple of recommendations, but there are several of them online. The applicant tracking system is important because when you apply for roles, what happens is that it's not a human being that will first look at your CV or your profile. So your CV, in some cases, some recruiting portal, once you upload your CV, they are able to extract a lot of the different information. You just need to confirm and then you submit. But some of them, you would have to put it in yourself. You have to type in all of those information. Please understand that initial stage in 21st century or whatever, in 21st century, the initial stage is not assessed by a human being. It is assessed by a computer that is just comparing the job role with your CV to say, does this thing match? Also, please be careful. I know some people, what they do is they pad their CV. You put a lot of technical jargons from your industry that you know nothing about. You've not even spent 30 minutes to just do a Google search to say, what does DevOps mean? Or, well, DevOps is too easy, but what does Splunk mean, for example? What does Happy mean? And several other things like that. You don't know what it is, but you know that they wrote it in the job description, and so you just put in your CV and you have no idea. Please be careful when you do that, because when they ask you questions around some of those things and you're not able to answer, it speaks to your integrity. And if you don't have integrity, you are not a culture fit. So be careful when you do things like that. And if you even want to pad your CV like that, at least know something about those things that you put in your CV. Right, so pass your CV through an applicant tracking system. Also, let somebody take a look at your CV from the perspective of the recruiter, because you may think that you are projecting something, because at a different stage, I mentioned different stages of what would happen in terms of the flow. At this stage, nobody is looking at your CV, but all the stages downwards, it is actually human beings that are now looking at your CV. And so because you want to make it through the entire funnel, you want to make sure that your CV is optimized for an ATS, and at the same time, it is optimized from human being that will be reviewing the CV. A couple of years back, it made sense for you to have multiple CVs. So you have a CV as a PHP developer, then you have another CV as Python developer, you have another CV as a business analyst, you have another CV as customer service professional, you have another CV as product manager, and then depending on what they're asking for, you can submit the CV that is required for what they're asking for. The truth is that the world has changed. A lot of times now, by the time you are getting to different stages, they are going to search for you. They are going to take a look at your profile, your LinkedIn. So which one of those roles will be on your LinkedIn, right? Unfortunately, LinkedIn will block your account if you are creating multiple profiles, or then you look dodgy if you have several different profiles and all. So we think that be a specialist. To say be a specialist in a particular role, yes, you can have different experiences along the different ancillaries. So you can be a project manager and also a product manager. I mean, they're close to each other enough to say, oh, yes, I have this experience. I was project manager and then I went on to become a product manager and all of those kind of things. That makes sense. But it doesn't make sense that you are a developer and also a project manager. Pick a battle and focus on that battle. If you don't have the experience, then take time to build the experience. It helps. Take time to build the experience. Yes, you can bluff your way through a bunch of things, but then a lot of times it will show even in your interview process. But even if you land the job, it will then show that you don't have the right experience to fit into that role, and then you may get fired because you don't fit into the role as well. It's harder to fire people anyway, so right. But what we're saying is that rather than you trying to bluff your way into whatever role, make sure that you are that person they're looking for, and then at the same time you are able to prove yourself as being the person that they are looking for. I'll just give a couple of tips. Moving on, and then we'll have time for questions. I'm looking at the time, I realized that. Anyway, we'll just keep going. Your applications, target roles that are needed frequently. So target roles that, I mean, there are like 50 vacancies that come out every day for those kinds of roles. That's what we think you should. We apply for many roles. That's why you will see a lot of people saying that, oh, I applied for 200 roles, 500 roles before I was able to land the one that was able to, I was able to land the right role for me. That happens, right? And you need to understand that looking for a job is a job by itself. I'll say that again. Looking for a job is a job by itself, because there are things that you should be doing on a regular daily basis on it. One of them for us is that we advise that you should apply for the role on the day the role was published. And so you want to have a system for you to be able to understand, oh, these are the roles that this bank has published today. These are the roles that this recruiter has published. These are the roles that is appearing on Indeed or Read or Top CV or whatever site it is that you are using. Use many anyway, but apply on the day the role comes out. The reason for that is this. When a role comes out, there are about 200 people that may apply for the role, particularly very competitive roles. Once the technical recruiter typically has gotten a certain number of CVs, they won't bother to check others. The only reason why they will go back to the pool of CVs is if they didn't find the people they are looking for to proceed to the other stages in the first, let's say 50, maybe the first 20% or something like that apply. The ATS has scanned it, it has given it a percentage. We do a lot of hiring ourselves, basically. So that's why we know many of this information, right? It scans it and all of that. And then it will shortlist. And so those are the people that will be proceeded into the interview stage. And so the reason why they will come back to the other people that have applied is that, oh, all these 20 people that were proceeded, none of them were able to move forward. Then they will look for maybe the next 20 or the next 30 and so on. So that's why highly optimal is apply on the day that rule is posted. Many of the sites that you use has a setting for that. And so that's a tip. Don't ignore the company's own recruitment portal. Many companies, especially the top ones, have their own recruitment engine. And so, yes, they push it into the different aggregators, but not every single role gets into those aggregator sites. When I say aggregator sites, I'm talking about the Indeeds, I'm talking about the LinkedIn, I'm talking about some of those sites as well, Reed and so on. Not every single role on the employer site makes it into those. And so don't ignore checking the employer site as well. Remember, I said that looking for a job is a job by itself. Of course, optimize the types of employers that you are looking at. The employers you should focus on are the employers that appear under either the registered sponsors list, as I mentioned earlier, or the scale up businesses list, as I mentioned earlier as well. All these lists are available in the world on Google. There's a site called jobserve.com that I'm very surprised that many people don't know about it. But 15 years ago, that was like the top place to find jobs in the UK. This was before LinkedIn became popular and so on. And so many of the older recruiters and all of that, particularly for contract roles, they use some of these sites. They post on that site. Don't also ignore LinkedIn. You may want to do LinkedIn Premium. That may help. You can also get people that already work in your target organization to recommend you for roles. That also is pretty useful to say, oh, fine, there's this role on this particular company and so on. Let's say Capital One or Revolut and so on. You can get people that work there to recommend you for roles as well. So those are some tips on that stage of the process. I'll move on. Wow, interesting. Yeah. Next one is the technical recruiter call or contact. So sometimes it's a call, sometimes it may just be a contact, chat and email and so on. Something you need to realize is that they only get paid when you land a role. Typically, it will be a percentage of your salary, of your annual salary. That's what they get paid. So they don't get paid because they spoke with you. They don't get paid because they pushed your CV forward to the recruiting manager. They get paid because you were the right profile that met all the requirements of the recruiting manager, went through all the processes, and then got hired. And so if you understand that, then you understand the motivation of the technical recruiter. The motivation is, first of all, to ascertain if you meet the job specification. In some cases, the recruiting manager may have given a list to say, these are all the things I expect the person to meet. So in addition to the public job specification, these are all the things that the person must also meet. Right? And this is where they would ask questions also as, oh, do you have the right to work in the UK? If they have sponsorship, then it's not a problem, right? But however, if they find people that already have the right to work, then that they will probably be more interested in those people. So understand your chances. However, I'm also saying that a lot of people have landed roles from their own country that moved them into the UK, particularly Indians, and now more Africans, more Asians and so on are also understanding that these things are possible. The recruiting manager will get many CVs from different technical recruiters because they too want to fill the role. And so they don't just give it out to one technical recruiter. In the cases where they use a technical recruiter, for some recruitment managers nowadays will say they don't even want to use a technical recruiter, so they play the role of the technical recruiter themselves. But that's a different conversation. They will get multiple CVs. And this is the part where I said that don't forget that your CV will also be looked at by a human being. And then they will look at, oh, this matches. So let's say they had 5 technical recruiters working with them. Each one of them pushed forward 2 people. So that's 5 times 2. That's 10 people on the desk of the recruitment manager. Recruitment manager is not going to interview 10 people for the role. They will shortlist to 3 people. So take a look at the CV, take a look at the experience, take a look at a bunch of things, and shortlist to say, oh, these are the 3 people that I want to proceed forward to the panel interview and so on. And those are the people that will move forward. So at that stage, your CV needs to be optimized. Your CV has to be the UK format. UK format of CV is different from US format of CV. I'll say it again. The UK format of a CV is different from the US format of CV. So you need to make sure that your CV is in the right format for them to quickly be able to understand the things that they need to. On the interview stages, use the STAR model. And this is where you need to actually have the experience, because the STAR model, I can't remember the full meaning right now. Situation, somebody can help us drop in the chat because I'm sure that some people should already know what that is, but be able to paint a picture of the things that you have done and how it equates to the things that these people that are trying to hire you today would need to get done. Understand that they are not hiring you to come and learn on the job at that level. They're hiring you because you have the skill, you have the experience, you have the exposure, and you need to be able to paint that picture. And so with every other human being as well, the fact that you have done something in the past says that you'll be able to do it in the future. If you've done something similar in the past, then they think that you'll be able to do the same in the future, which is why it's important that you have the right experience for you to be able to show them. But then if you have that experience and you're not able to paint a picture so that the person interviewing you, I do a lot of interviews, so the person interviewing you needs to be able to see through you to say, oh, this person will fit into the role that we are trying to fit him into. If it's for a junior dev, if it's for a senior dev, if it's for a project manager and several other roles like that, they want to see that, oh, this person has done the type of things that are required. They want to see that. I do a lot of interviews on behalf of organization and also on behalf of organizations I work with. And I see all sorts of things of people that have the experience, but then they are not able to paint that picture. And so all of a sudden, the panel does not understand that, oh, this person actually fits into what it is that we're trying to hire for. And then, yes, we see also places where people actually don't have the experience and they think they can bluff their way. Yes, some people have successfully bluffed their way through interview panels and all of that, but it is not easy. I think it is easier to actually have the right experience and then sit in front of the panel rather than the other way to say, oh, okay, I'll pretend and so on. When you have a code test for developers in the room, don't copy code from online and paste. I see this a lot and it makes me sad, right? But I see this a lot when I sit on the side of the company, right? To say you're giving a technical test and then obviously, yes, you can search online and you can find that code test online and all of that. And then instead of you doing your own solution to the problem, then what you decide to do is that you go and copy and paste, then you change some variable names, thinking that the solution, you forget that many of these solutions have been optimized for machine learning, all the technology that you also use. Many of the code testing solutions already have a lot of different capabilities. And so if you can't do it, then start practicing. Start building capacity so that when you get those, and there are several sites out there where you can be building all of those capacities so that when you then get to the test, you are able to do the tests. In some cases, what happens is also that, oh, the tasks, you found the task online. And in some cases, the solution you find online may not even be the correct solution. It may not even be the most optimal solution. I found this interesting in one of the platforms that is used for code testing by the employer. So the employer pays for this platform for them to test developers, right? And then they said that when they see leaked tasks to say that somebody has gone to paste on GitHub to say, this is my solution to this code test that was given by this organization, they try to take it down. But then the ones they leave are the ones that are the obvious wrong answers. Not obvious, but the ones that are the wrong answers. Those are the ones they leave to say they don't get their lawyers to write and all of those kind of things to try and get the code, that code test now. So just bear that in mind. And this same principle also applies for every other role too. Any other role out there, the same principle applies, which is the fact that you want to ensure that you can pass that test. A few other tips before I stop for questions is that you can ask for feedback. When you go through this process and you may have been dropped at one stage or the other, you can actually ask for feedback. So legally in the UK, you are allowed to ask for feedback. And the reason for that is because you can take them to court to say that the reason they didn't hire you is because you were Black, or because you were a woman, or because you were handicapped, or because you were all of those kind of things. So you can actually ask for feedback to say, okay, give me feedback as regards this, my interview. You can. It doesn't happen like that in some other countries, but I can tell you that for the UK. Also, you can use that feedback to improve yourself for the next one. So remember, I said that you will need to apply for probably many, and then you will probably go through these steps. I didn't have time to share as much as I thought I would during this session. And well, yeah. But yes, you can use that feedback to improve yourself for the next one. You can use that feedback to say, okay, fine, they said that you didn't pass across this kind of skill properly. Then you need to think about it. Don't argue. Don't say, oh, that person did not know what he was saying. Sometimes they don't know what they are saying to be honest, right? But that's not the point. The point is that take a look to say, how can I optimize myself? How can I optimize my profile? How could I have said what I said better and so on, so that it would come across better in the next one. One more tip I would just say is that you can leverage on diversity, equity, and inclusion, which they are very big on in the UK, in many Western countries, but in the UK, which is what we are focusing on. Because if you are one of the top candidates and then they are trying to fill maybe a diversity peak for sex, or ethnicity and several other things that is around the diversity peak, then that could tip the scale in your favor. But of course, you need to get to that top maybe 3 or top 2 or something like that before that then becomes what's named. So the organizations don't do that. Some people, not in the UK really, but not very common really, but they can't say, oh, we are looking for a female Python developer. They can't say that. But at the same time, the organization has an objective to say they need to have a balance in terms of gender, right? So what would happen is that if there are 3 of you at the top, then they can say, oh, because this is a female, these 3 qualify, these 3 are okay and all of that, but we only have 1 vote, and they can give it to the female. So lucky you women in tech, right? You have more opportunities than us men in tech at the moment, right? But that's because historically, the men in tech had the opportunities. But what I argue sometimes is that, but it wasn't me that had the opportunity, it was other men that had the opportunity, not me as a man myself, right? But the point is that this is something you can also leverage on to your own advantage at this point in time, because it's the type of world that we are in. Leverage on it doesn't mean that you should not be skilled, you should not be experienced. It is leverage on it means that because you also then have that, it can tip the scale in your favor. How we can help at eMigr8, one of them is tech career coaching. So all of these that I've shared so far is only a tip of the iceberg, really. But yes, we do have a tech career coaching service to be able to enroll people in whatever stage that they are in. We've got a solution launching called AutoJobServe. I mentioned that you need to be able to keep track of different companies and different different companies, when the role is published, you want to be the first to apply, you want to automatically apply for some of the roles and so on. We can help with that. We can also help with UK experience, because obviously if you've got experience, it helps. But if you've got UK experience as well, it helps even better. And so that is just a tip of the iceberg in terms of some of the things that happens in terms of you being able to land the right role that you're looking for. Just to recap, and then I'll ask people to say, can you please put in the chat a number that represents what stage you generally are at with your recruitment drive or with your hiring drive? Because for many people in the room, we expect that some of you have already started this process at one stage or the other. And so you can just let us know what stage are you generally at in some of the ones you've done? Are you at the stage where you're just applying, but nobody's contacting you? Something is wrong, and you can optimize that stage. Are you at the stage where you apply, you speak with technical recruiters, and the technical recruiters don't call you back or they don't push you forward? Then there's something wrong with something you are saying or things you are saying with the technical recruiter at that stage. Are you at the stage where they push you forward, but then it's your own that they don't pick? For many of the ones that you've gone through, then there's an issue there. It can also be optimized because there are things that you can probably do better. Or are you doing interviews and then you are not being pushed forward, technical interviews to start with, and then there are things that you can do in that as well. So please put in the chat. Or are you just open to new opportunities, which is one, meaning that you've not even started in any one of these ladder at all? Please put that in the chat, and then I'll pause at this stage for questions. So please put in the chat. We'll just pause for a moment for you to do that. Where are you generally on this ladder that I'm showing in terms of the stages? And then, yeah. I'm not seeing... All right. I see a few mentions in the chat already. Yeah. And so it would, yes. So I'll pause at this point for questions. Thank you for listening. And sorry it took longer than I actually thought it would take. Thank you. Now is the time for questions. We won't have time for the open consultation, so best thing to do is to post your question in the chat. And also, I believe there are questions from the community as well. Thank you. This is a very interesting question. So I think the first question I can see is, would the recording be available online? It's a very interesting question. We'll answer that question shortly. All right. Okay. Blessing, could you help with the questions? Okay.
Okay, so there's one in the short box. Can you say it out? Should I say it out?
Yes, you can.
I am a graphic designer, video editor, photographer with about 20 years experience. I run a creative company and my company has worked with multinationals. I want to try a global talent technician route. What would you advise?
Yes, so this session was, we are focusing on this session on the UK skilled worker route, not the global talent route. In 2 weeks or so, we will be having a session around the UK global talent. And so I believe that this question will be better answered during that session. However, 20 years of experience sounds to me like a talent. running a creative company sounds to me like consulting, which they said they don't want in the global talent, what's the name? But then you may have worked on specific products within your company that can show yourself as product-led. But yeah, this is a conversation we can take forward within the session focused on the UK global talent route. This session is focused on the UK skilled worker route, UK scale-up visa route, and also landing a role in the UK tech ecosystem.
Okay. There's another question here. Can being a manager or a team leader help in your assessment?
Oh, yes, definitely, because some roles that have been, some roles are literally asking that they are trying to fill you in as a manager, meaning that you've been able to manage people, other people, right? And so that's what they are looking for. In fact, some of the senior roles out there are usually for you to be able to lead a team of either other seniors or maybe juniors and seniors, a mixed bag. So that is good experience. The only thing is that you need to be able to describe those experiences in the way where your panel, the technical recruiter, the recruiting manager, the hiring manager, and several others would be able to understand what it is you're saying and be able to position you to say, oh, this person will fit in nicely into our own organization that we are recruiting for.
I hope that handles that. There's another one here. Does being on the scale-up company list automatically qualify company to sponsor? I had applied in the past and got a reply from one of them that they are not able to sponsor, but I'm willing to go ahead if I was in the UK already.
Yeah, so that's what I explained earlier around defined and undefined. So yes, it qualifies the scale up. Every scale up is able to sponsor, but some scale ups, some companies would avoid sponsoring people who are not already in the UK, because if you are not already in the UK, there are additional complexities. Some companies don't mind. Some companies have an entire department that manages those complexities, right? And so they don't mind because they have a whole department. What they are just focused on is that they want to fill the role that they want to fill with the right talent that can deliver on the role, right? So some companies don't mind, but some companies don't have that capacity because what they are focused on is not hiring. So if they can find somebody in the UK that they can sponsor, they find it easier to do that than to try and sponsor someone from outside the UK.
Thank you. I see another one here. What length of stay does a visa afford? The person they mentioned if it's talking scale of visa or local visa. It's asking what length of stay does the visa afford and if they can come with dependents.
Yes, you can come with a dependent. You can go to the UK with a dependent, and in terms of the length of stay, will depend on the visa, the job role, and all. But typically, 5 years would be what you are looking at.
So there's a question here, and I'm really particular about this question. The person is asking, are there trainings to aid in skill acquisition? I'm guessing the person is asking if Bincom does that as well. But basically, really, how would Bincom aid in skill acquisition or trying to help people get this visa?
Yeah, so Bincom has 3 key services that are able to help. The first is the Bincom Global Tech Program that I talked about earlier during my initial presentation, that helps people learn skill, gain experience, and gain exposure in the field of technology, and literally prepare you for some of these things that we are talking about. The second one is our eMigr8 service, which is the reason why we're on this call. We've got the eMigr8 coaching, and we've got a bunch of coaches that are able to coach around some of these things that we are talking about. The third one is our tech career coaching service, which focuses on you also being able to build experience, particularly in the UK, in your target role. So if you are trying to land a role at a certain level, then what is going on with the tech career coaching service is that they're actually packaging you, coaching you along the line, and also exposing you to the right level of experience for you to be able to land that role. So many of the things I've spoken about are some of the things that the tech career packaging service will be looking at to say, okay, at what stage are you? Do you need to optimize your CV? Do you need to optimize your profile? Is it that you don't have the right experiences in your profile, and then you are building those experiences? I didn't say you are writing that you have the experience in your CV. No, you're actually building the experience, and of course, you can then write it in your CV that you have that experience, and so on. So those are the things that the Tech Career Coaching Service does for does.
Okay, asking if the trainings are physical or virtual training.
So the trainings are virtual, but Bincom has seven locations in Nigeria, and also expanding as a location in the UK, and also is trying to expand more. Everything is still virtual, but every one of those locations are places where you can go to, you can meet with some of your peers, you can also interact and so on. But Bincom literally became a virtual organization at the beginning of the pandemic, with physical locations everywhere, but we're expanding to 30 locations.
So, sir, you mentioned you've been talking about how this visa is dependent on somebody being highly skilled. So, my question, especially for the newbies, how long can it take someone to actually become highly skilled? When you say it in my head, I'm thinking 5 years. But is it something we can do in a year or 2 years? Is that for real, like realistically speaking?
So the answer is yes. In 1 to 2 years, you can actually become at a junior level. So if you're a developer, you can actually become an intermediate level developer. And there are a lot of vacancies for intermediate level developers today. So that is an option, right? And across any other careers as well, it's just easy to say junior developer, intermediate level, and senior level developer. So within a 1 to 2 year period, you can actually achieve that. However, it doesn't come easy. It comes with a lot of sleepless nights. It comes with the right experiences. It comes with you building skill. It comes with you being what's the word? It comes with you being passionate about technology, learning new things that have just come out, being positioned properly for what it is that you are looking for.
Another thing you talked about was cultural fit that fits into the culture. How important is that? I mean, what if I'm highly skilled and I don't fit in? Would I get rejected because of that? And if so, can you give us some tips on how to go about being a fit for whatever company that we're trying to apply?
Culture is important for every company, because most companies realize that if they want to grow, if they want to get to their next level, so if it's a seed stage company, to say they've just raised seed and they want to grow to Series A, they realize that the culture within the organization is what will help them drive to that level. And moving on to from one level to the other is the same thing. And so the culture is critical. And in fact, you would not get hired if you are not a culture fit, because they don't want trouble. They want people who will be able to come into the team, add value to the team, complement other people that are in the team, and then help the organization meet their objective. So if you're not a culture fit, you will not fit in. However, you can be doing stuff immediately. You can be building soft skills, communication, several other things like that. Many companies don't joke with integrity, for example, as well. So culture fit's important, and it's something you should be building as you are building your career as well.
So someone's asking if graphic design is a tech-based skill.
Yes, graphics design is a tech-based skill, but you probably want to go into user interface design in addition to your graphics design. UI and UX, those are two separate skills, by the way. UI is one of the is in high demand, basically.
So, okay, talking about, because it's easy to think that, oh, this is just for people who are coders, like people who are in coding. What about non-technical people, people in digital marketing, data analysis? Is there a chance for them on this way too, or should they look for other ways?
The answer is yes, because if you go to this shortage occupation list, as I mentioned earlier, you will find a lot of these things that you've mentioned, product management, digital marketing, performance marketing is what it's called, but you'll find a lot of these listed there as part of the shortage occupation skill. And so what you want to do is look at one of those skills and target it to say, I will be an expert in this within a year to 2 years. And if you've
So
already started, then, I mean, you're probably already an expert.
someone asking, what soft skills do you recommend? What soft skills do you recommend?
That's a tricky question, because I thought soft skills is a word used for a combination of things that makes you you in addition to your other skill. So every skill that is not your actual technology skill is what I thought is called soft skills. But leadership, if you're at manager level, then leadership, you need to be able to do that. Mentoring, communication, there are several of them. Presentation, being able to share what you are thinking, right? Because in some cases they give you a scenario-based question and all of that. So those are some soft skills. And if it's physical interview, your appearance also matters. Even for virtual as well, your appearance matters.
I want to ask about the point-based system. So you talked about yes, the point-based system. Is it like if I agree to say, oh, okay, I want Bincom to help me, I have tried it before, I've checked, I've even tried to check myself online and I don't get enough points. Is that something Bincom can help me with to improve my points?
So for the UK visa, right, the point-based system is not from you. How do I explain it? So yes, there are some visa types, not the UK now, where the point base are things that you can start building to say, oh, if you're married or not married, all of those kind of things, it will give you points or not give you points. In this case, the point-based system would be things like if your role is in the shortage occupation list, then you get automatic 20 points. If the job pays salary higher than the threshold for that occupation, you automatically get 20 points, and then it goes on like that. So what we would do and work with you on is to ensure that your profile meets the role that will pay the 40Ks or 50Ks or maybe even 100Ks of this world. That's what you want to do. And then once you get the job, you automatically get those points.
Okay. So I'm asking, what of someone that has both digital marketing and tech cybersecurity? Do I still need to choose a particular one, even if both are in the roles shortage?
Interesting question. So the UK is looking for experts. It is very difficult for you to be both an expert in digital marketing and also an expert in cybersecurity at the same time. I didn't say you knowing how to do cybersecurity, but you showing that you are an expert in cybersecurity. That one is already work by itself. Then you want to show that you are both expert in cybersecurity and digital marketing, which is a separate skill. It's going to be very difficult. We think that what you should do at a certain level is to pick one skill and become very good at that skill. You should know something about everything. That's one of Bincom's idiosyncrasy, actually, right? Knowing something about everything, right? Because that also helps. By the time you get to a certain stage in the interview process towards the end, the fact that you know many of these other things can help to say, okay, I also know this. Can help because you've probably already gotten the job at that stage anyway. But before you get to that stage, what they are looking for is an expert to say, if I'm looking for intermediate level, a senior Python developer, I'm looking for a senior Python developer. I'm not looking for a product manager. I'm not looking for a Scrum Master. I'm not looking for anything else but a senior Python developer. If you bring other things to the table, when you have gotten into the organization, yes, that works. But at the gate, all you need is that you're a senior Python developer. I hope that helps. Okay, so I see another question here. Is it possible for a computer hardware engineer to also get a role in the UK, or are there some other areas they should pivot into to be relevant? The answer is actually yes, funny enough, right? Because if you check the shortage occupation role, one of the ones there is a technician one around computer engineering and all of that. Very funny enough. But what I believe personally is that you should probably be looking at things like cloud, infrastructure management, DevOps, and all. I think that is where the world is going into. But yes, if you check the shortage occupation list, there's actually one of those. I can't remember the actual name or the code, but I know it is there. That has to do with computer hardware engineer. All right.
Also, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, welcome back.
Thank you. I think I've lost the questions in the chat.
Okay, so I think the next one I see here is, please, how do I proceed? I'm a software engineer. So I'm not sure what you mean by how do you proceed, because what we've done is just shared a bunch of information. Some of it for you to literally go back, digest, do your own research, and then be able to work with it. The other part of it is that if you need help, we've got a bunch of income services that is available that can help. I mentioned three that may be of interest, and then you can indicate interest in any of those services, and the relevant team may be able to follow up with you at that stage. That's if you need extra help. But the point is, this information that we've shared today, that we think is very useful information, digest it, do your own research with it, and then take it from there.
I just want to quickly add to those, because there's some people watching us on YouTube. Please feel free to put your question in the chat as well. We're about to run this over. Please, if you questions, you can still type it in the chat box on YouTube. There's a question here, sir. What is the experience with infrastructure management roles that span different technology stacks and multi-sector specialty?
That's typically something like DevOps. I'll just re-echo what was said, is that for those watching us on YouTube, you can also drop your questions in the chat and we'll be able to answer the question. If you are watching the replay, we'll be able to answer the questions in the chat as well. Then the question was, what is your experience with infrastructure management roles that span different technology stacks and not a certain specialty? So infrastructure, cloud, and DevOps, you typically would focus on Azure, AWS, and what's the third one? GCP. Thank you. Right. You probably focus on that. For some organizations, if they are an Azure shop, what they would like is somebody that has experience in Azure. They really don't want somebody that hasn't worked in Azure for like 2 years or 3 years or something like that. What they are focusing on is someone that has worked in Azure. But if they can't find that, they may say, oh, because this person knows AWS and Azure, they are almost the same thing, except that they have different components, different names, different ways those things work, and so on. They may say, oh, fine, let's pick somebody that doesn't have that type of experience. For people I coach in that field, what I ask them to do is become an expert in GCP, become an expert in Azure, become an expert in GCP, Azure, and AWS, become an expert in those three. All of them, you use Terraform and a bunch of those things. And all so that if there's a role in Azure, you can show your expertise in Azure. If there's a role in AWS, you can show your expertise, and so on. I hope that helps.
Okay, sir. So, sir, there is a question from YouTube. One is asking what it costs to be on the coaching platform. What I don't understand is if he wants to be mentored, or okay, he said he wants to be mentored. I don't know if that is
what it costs.
Maybe about research. Yeah, he's asking what it costs.
Yeah, so you can send a message to, or you can indicate interest in whatever specific you're interested in, or just send a message on the community and somebody will get back to you. Usually what we prefer is that we would do an initial session with you, which is usually the short session. I mentioned it at the beginning of this, and I think there will be time to just share quickly again on that. We'll prefer to do that initial short session with you to just understand if you're a fit, because we are not able to admit every single person into the coaching service or the eMigr8 service, or even the Bincom Global one as well. All right, and I think that's a good segue for me to just share my screen again and just do a quick recap of some of the things that we've shared today. We've gone over our typical time. We spoke about landing a role, we spoke about these different levels, and we spoke about the fact that every one of these levels can be optimized. And there are a few tips that we shared during the session about each one of the levels. We spoke about the different visa pathway, and we said that from the employer's perspective, they're not doing you a favor. All they want is for you to fill the role that they are looking at. We spoke about the move to UK in 3 to 6 months, and we said that if you're interested in that package, it's the UK startup visa that this package focuses on. And you can send a WhatsApp message to any of the numbers you see on the screen, which hopefully will be dropped in the chat as well. And we'll be able to give you more information on that. We said that if you don't yet qualify, what you should do is you should be planning and you should be building your profile towards that. We spoke about what eMigr8 is, to say we help you become globally attractive. Visa, yes, is a side objective. It's probably the reason why you joined this particular call, but it's really just a side objective of that overall plan, which is that help you become globally attractive. A bunch of services that eMigr8 covers, information session and several others, and that eMigr8 focuses on a freemium model. Freemium means that we do a bunch of things for free, but we do have a premium offerings as well. Some of the free offerings you can see by one side, and the premium offering you can see by the other side as well. We've got the eMigr8 premium service. We've got short inquiry sessions, which is free. We are limited to just one short inquiry session per person, which is usually about 10 minutes. However, as I said earlier, to say if you wait till the end, we've got a bonus for you, is that you can get a second short inquiry session for free because you've actually waited or watched this video to the very end. And so you get access to 2 different short inquiry sessions where you can ask any question around anything that you need. It could be career, it could be around the visa coaching or any of those as well. eMigr8 packages, we've spoken about some of those, and we've asked that join the eMigr8 community. We look forward to that community being very vibrant. And we ask that you engage, you like, you share, you comment, invite friends, and so on into the eMigr8 community. We also said that we've got a bunch of other open days coming up soon. And the next open day will be focusing on the UK Global Talent Visa. And so that's a quick recap. Any last minute questions, Blessing, before we jump off today?
No, sir, just I think you've already answered it. I was going to ask what's the way forward if somebody's interested, but I think you've already answered.
All right, so the way forward, if you're interested, is first of all, join the community, be active in the community. There's a lot of information that is shared within those communities. So join the community. If you're interested in any one of the premium services, you can just indicate either in the community or to one of the admins, and then they will be able to let you know what the next steps are. If you haven't done so already, you want to go to beacon.net/eMigr8 and you want to indicate interest, so you'll be able to get access to some of our resources, which will be sent to you by email. And some of those resources are also useful for this, your tech-enabled pathway to relocation and settlement. My final word is this, that many of these opportunities exist today. Not all of them will exist in tomorrow. And so you want to take action. For some people in the room, you already qualify, and so your action is literally to start your journey. For some people in the room, you do not yet qualify, but your action is to make a plan, a roadmap for yourself and your career to say, this is the answer sheets. This is what they are asking of my profile to look like in the next couple of years or in the next couple of months. Then I'm working towards making sure my profile meets that. I'm building the right skill for my profile to meet that. I'm building the right experience for my profile to meet that. I'm building the right exposure for my profile to meet that. And you want to be doing all of those things simultaneously so that you don't get to the other end and you have all the skills, but you don't have any experience. You don't want to get to the other end and have all you have experience, but you don't have the right skill or the right exposure for what is being looked for in the industry at this point in time. Something I didn't say for those of us that are already in the journey of that application process is that look for about 20 to 30 different vacancies in the role that you are targeting. Bring them all together and then compile all of those vacancies into one major profile. And then compare your own current profile to that to say, if they are looking for DevOps, for example, these are all the things that they are asking for a DevOps person to know: Terraform, Splunk, all sorts of things that they are supposed to know and be experienced in, right? List them all out and then look at your profile today and be able to say, this is where I am today. And gradually, I'm going to be learning all these things. Gradually, I'm going to find the right projects, sometimes even if you want to do it for free, for me to be able to start using all these things so I can literally build experience to meet the profile that they are looking for. They've shown you what they are looking for in terms of the profile for the job, which is what we're speaking about today, right? And the onus lies on you to ensure that your profile meets that. We are not saying you should pretend that your profile meets that. We are saying that you should actually build your profile to meet what they are looking for, because there are over 1 million vacancies in the UK alone today that they are struggling to fill. Thank you so much, everyone. The recording will be available for this session. The recording will be available for this session. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely rest of the day.